Hey guys, tonight we're plunging headfirst into a time and place where the humidity never quits. The beds are more suggestion than comfort, and your spiritual duties include bleeding. Yes, you're waking up as an average person in the classic Maya civilization. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are the parasites, the ceremonial obligations, and the jaguar you may or may not hear outside your hut. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always interesting seeing how globally sleepy we all are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not in your bed anymore. In fact, you barely have one. The ground beneath you is packed earth, still warm from yesterday's heat. A woven reed mat is the closest thing to a mattress, though it's about as yielding as an overachieving yoga mat. Your neck is stiff from using a carved wooden headrest, an object designed more for spiritual alignment than spinal health. Welcome to your Maya household. 1 room, 3 bodies, a fire pit, and 0 personal space. Smoke curls lazily through a small opening in the thatched roof above you. It smells of old corn and last night's pine wood ash, and it stings just enough to remind you you're definitely breathing. That roof, tightly thatched palm leaves, artfully arranged, keeps the worst of the rain out, unless the gods are having a tantrum, in which case it simply helps funnel water down your spine. You live with your family, 2 generations stacked like ceremonial plates, and the space doubles as bedroom, kitchen, shrine, and occasionally, panic room. The air, somehow already thick before sunrise, presses on your skin like a wet wool blanket you can't take off. The jungle sings in layers. Frogs croaking bass, insects whining treble, and some bird, a parrot or demon, maybe both, screeching its one eternal note. You sit up, your joints protesting like you've run a marathon in sandals made of disappointment. You're around 20, which, in Maya years, means you're either at your physical peak or already overdue for ritual bloodletting. Your home is in a residential cluster, dozens of similar structures hugging a plaza or stretching up terraced slopes. It's not just you. Your neighbors are probably also half awake, grumbling and stretching. You can hear someone nearby already grinding maize with a stone metate, a sound that's oddly rhythmic, like an ancient lo-fi beat to start the day. Sleep was light and twitchy. There are no blankets, just a cotton cloth if you're lucky, or a pet if you're not. Dogs, in fact, sleep indoors often. Sometimes because they're sacred, sometimes because they're future dinner, and sometimes just because they haven't learned boundaries. The first feeling of the day is not rest, it's ache. Knees from squatting, back from labor, arms from carrying, and that small gnawing tension in your gut that says, "Good morning. You're not quite full, are you?" Hunger's a familiar background music, never screaming, never silent, just there, always. If you're elite, which you're not, your bed might be slightly raised, maybe even padded with cloth and woven mats. But you're not elite. You're spiritually vital, but economically optional. That means everything you touch is functional, worn smooth by years of use, and minimal in comfort. The architecture is beautiful, though. Painted walls, carved altars, family shrines tucked into corners with offerings of flowers, corn, or occasionally your best chicken. You rub your eyes, hoping for less daylight and more reason. Outside, the sun hasn't risen fully, but the air already smells like wet stone and yesterday's sweat. You're supposed to give thanks at dawn, so you turn to the household shrine, a little idol of a maize god with a permanently surprised expression, and murmur your prayers. You thank him for not letting the roof cave in. You ask him to keep your feet fungus-free. The usual. Historians still debate whether the Maya had structured mornings like ours, but the evidence suggests a strong alignment with the solar cycle. Rituals, labor, and eating all flowed with the sun. You just flow with whatever hurts the least. You get up, adjusting the cloth wrapped around your waist. If you're male, it's a simple maxlotl. Basically, a loincloth, the ancient version of boxer briefs, but breezier and less private. If you're female, it's a wrapped skirt. Tight enough to stay put while grinding corn, but loose enough not to anger the gods of circulation. Topless isn't scandalous. It's the weather's fault, really. And honestly, everyone's seen everything already. A jaguar roars in the distance. Or maybe it's your stomach. Either way, you step outside, blinking into the pale morning light as the jungle exhales all around you. A mainstream historical fact. Maya households often contain family shrines, complete with figurines and offerings, used daily for ancestor veneration and deity worship. A fringe detail you didn't ask for. Maya homes sometimes had painted murals, not just for beauty, but to instruct kids, shame adults, or literally spell out tax reminders in hieroglyphs. And just for fun. Historians still argue whether the average Maya person began the day with formal ritual prayers or whether it was more of a groan, stand, stretch, grind corn situation. You duck your head as you step back inside your home. Not that you needed to duck. Your home is so low to the ground that even a moderately ambitious iguana might have ceiling trouble. The inside is exactly what you remember from 5 minutes ago. Dark, smoky, loud, and filled with the scent of half-burnt maize and unwashed humanity. The fire in the center is still smoldering from last night's cooking. It serves two purposes: to cook and to make breathing a low-stakes act of suffocation. Your house is made of wattle and daub, which sounds charming until you realize it's basically mud pasted onto a wooden frame. If you punch the wall hard enough, you could meet your neighbor without stepping outside. The roof is thatched, which means rain has full visitation rights during storm season. And it's always storm season. Still, you're lucky. Some people live in even simpler shelters, little more than palm fronds and spiritual optimism. Your family is already moving. Your older sister is folding up mats. Your grandmother is muttering something about yesterday's dreams. And your father is coughing into a corner with the resigned air of someone who has never known the concept of a weekend. You step carefully over your cousin, still asleep under the hammock, and sit on your own mat. Reeds woven together so tightly, they feel like punishment. This is not a house built for privacy. In fact, privacy doesn't exist. Everyone sees everything. You know when someone snores. You know when someone's stomach gurgles. You know exactly how often your uncle picks at his toenails, and that is knowledge you can never unknow. But in the Maya worldview, family is everything. So togetherness is not a bug. It's a feature, whether or not you want it. There are no windows, only gaps in the wall that let in light and mosquitoes with equal enthusiasm. Your family's few prized possessions, ceramic vessels, weaving tools, a gourd painted with jaguar spots, hang on wooden pegs or sit in clay-lined pits. You're not poor exactly. You're just historically normal, which is to say, poor to say. The fire still fills the hut with eye-stinging smoke. This is by design. See, Maya homes had no chimneys. Smoke was encouraged to accumulate. It was thought to keep bugs away. And to be fair, the bugs do leave, eventually, once you pass out from smoke inhalation. Until then, it's just you, the smoke, and your mildly irritated lungs. Now, here's something historians love pointing out. despite being one of the most sophisticated civilizations in Mesoamerica. The Maya didn't prioritize ventilation. They prioritized tradition. If your ancestors built smoke saunas, then by the gods, you will too. Even if your eyes feel like boiled tomatoes. You rub your shoulder, sore from sleeping on your side on a mat thinner than ambition. Your bones ache with the kind of fatigue that only comes from spending your entire life on hard surfaces. Softness is not part of your world. Cushions are for the afterlife. Maybe. Outside, you can hear the village waking up. Distant grinding stones, coughs, birds shrieking like they too had a terrible night. And somewhere, always, someone's baby crying. You feel a twinge of sympathy. Then you realize the baby is actually your younger sibling. So you sigh and pretend you didn't hear anything. Sometimes, in the rare moments of quiet, you dream of the stone cities, the ones filled with temples, scribes, and real nobility. You imagine what it must be like to live in one of those massive limestone palaces with painted walls and soft cushions. But deep down, you know, those people live in a different universe. You'll never see the inside of a palace unless you're cleaning it or being sacrificed on top of it. According to the glyphs, the gods favor humility. Well, mission accomplished. You've got nothing but humility and a few corn husks to your name. And speaking of names, yes, the Maya had them. Yours might be something like Nam, which means sunburn, very appropriate. Names are chosen carefully here, based on the sacred calendar and celestial omens. Every day, every birth, every sneeze has a cosmic meaning. You're never just some guy. You're a spiritual data point in a universe full of terrifying significance. Still seated on your mat, you notice a line of ants marching across the floor. You try to ignore them. Ants are your roommates now. You live in their world. You've just been allowed to rent space. Your mother calls for help with the hearth. You shuffle over. Together, you fan the embers until the fire flares up. The smoke thickens again, curling around your face like a passive-aggressive ghost. You cough once more. It's going to be a long day. You haven't even left the house, and already your mental state is somewhere between mildly crushed and existentially itchy. It's the kind of fatigue that comes not from doing something, but from knowing you have to do it again, forever. And yet, in the chaos, you glimpse a strange kind of rhythm. The scraping of the stone, the coughing, the fire crackling. It's not comfort, but it is familiarity. A grim consistency that keeps you moving. Because here your house isn't just a place. It's your boundary between survival and oblivion. And even if it's smoky, cramped, and infested with insects, it's yours. Or at least, it's the gods. You just pay rent, in sweat. Breakfast is happening. Again. Which sounds great in theory, until you realize it's the exact same thing you had yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. Boiled beans and flat tortillas. Not served with tortillas. Only tortillas. And maybe some chili paste if the gods smiled on your grandmother's garden. Spoiler, the gods didn't. You crouch near the hearth while your mother kneels over the kamal. The flat ceramic griddle balanced over hot coals. The fire flickers against her face, sweat shining on her brow as she flips one tortilla after another, as if she were trapped in a divine cooking loop that started before birth and never ends. You want to help, but you also want to live, and she's wielding the tortilla flipper like a weapon. There are no chairs, no tables. You eat squatting beside the fire. Fingers your only utensils. The tortillas are warm but have all the texture of a bath towel. You scoop beans, mushy and suspiciously watery. and slap them onto the tortilla with the enthusiasm of someone who no longer dreams in color. You chew and chew and chew. The beans are more ash than flavor. The tortilla is dry enough to erase fingerprints. You wonder, briefly, if anyone's ever choked to death on breakfast here. Statistically, probably. Modern nutritionists call this meal high fiber and heart healthy. Ancient you calls it the emotional equivalent of a flat tire. And yet, in Maya society, this meal is sacred. Maize is life. Maize is religion. The Popol Vuh, their sacred text, literally says that humans were made from corn dough after the gods got tired of messing around with wood and mud people. So every time you take a bite of your dry, joyless tortilla, you're technically eating your ancestors, or at least their hopes and dreams. Your younger sibling asks if there's any cacao. There is not. You laugh so hard a bean flies out of your nose. Cacao is for the elite. Priests, scribes, warriors, and the kind of people who don't have to wash their own tunics in crocodile-infested rivers. You're more in the stale tortilla as dessert income bracket. Now, a curious historical tidbit. The Maya had chocolate, yes, but they drank it bitter, spiced with chili or ground maize. No sugar, no whipped cream, no Instagrammable foam art. Just a brown sludge that screams, you're not here to have fun. You finish your meal in silence, which is more cultural reverence than food-induced euphoria. Eating is communal, spiritual, boring. You don't talk much because you're busy not gagging. Across the fire, your father is also chewing slowly, gazing into the distance like he's trying to astral project out of breakfast. After the last tortilla is swallowed, your mother scrapes the comal clean with a stone shard. That's your plate washing service. Rock against ceramic. The ash left behind will be reused. Nothing goes to waste, not even your hope. You step outside to let your brain cool off. The sun is climbing, and you can already feel sweat pooling in places you didn't know could sweat. You think about water. Maybe you'll get some from the cenote later, maybe not. The last time you went, you saw a snake so large it had opinions. Plus, hauling water is for strong backs and weak wills. You have one of those. Now, historians still debate whether Maya meals were enjoyed or simply endured. Some glyphs show feasting, yes, but others hint at seasonal starvation, bean shortages, and corn fungus that could double as a psychedelic. Either way, you're not part of a feast. You're part of a culinary exercise in survival. Later in the day, if you're lucky, you might get a tamale. That's corn dough with something inside. Maybe squash, maybe chili, maybe a prayer. Meat is rare. So rare, in fact, that when someone butchers a turkey or deer, the neighborhood gathers like it's a rock concert. But most days, you just wait and hope that whatever's cooking doesn't involve iguana or regret. In your darker moments, you fantasize about variety, about a fruit you didn't have to climb for, about a drink that didn't come with bacteria and aftertaste. But variety is for scribes, warriors, and the dead. You glance up at the sky. Still morning. Still hot. Still beans in your teeth. You pick them out with a twig. Brush your hands on your loincloth. And that's dental hygiene and napkin duty all in one. Because here, food doesn't comfort. It doesn't excite. It doesn't even satisfy. It just delays your death by a few hours. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. You're told to keep clean, to honor the gods with a pure body, to purify yourself before rituals, ceremonies, or even meals. Which sounds noble until you remember your bathhouse is a river and your loofah is a fistful of gravel. Personal hygiene in the Maya world is less spa day and more life-risking river sprint. The river is your main bathing option, but it's also the local watering hole, trash site, laundry pit, and occasional crocodile buffet. You approach it with the reverence of a soldier entering a minefield. One wrong step and you're either swept downstream or given a permanent new tattoo by leeches. The water's cold, not refreshingly cold, betrayal cold. You step in anyway because the alternative is being the smelly one. And nobody wants to be that in a community where social shame travels faster than sound. You kneel, splash yourself awkwardly, and scrub with sand, leaves, and the vague hope that friction removes curses. Soap? Not quite. The Maya use the crushed bark of the sapote tree, which foams when mixed with water. It's sort of like nature's shampoo, if your shampoo was also a mild skin irritant and sometimes full of bugs. Still, it works. Kind of. The moment you think you're clean, a mosquito the size of your thumb lands on your neck, proving that cleanliness is more a suggestion than a reality. Now, here's a quirky historical tidbit. The Maya believed in ritual bathing before major ceremonies. Sweating out impurities was sacred, so they used temazcals, sweat lodges filled with steam from heated rocks and water. You sit in one, naked, sweating profusely, while an elder chants and waves herbs around your head. Think of it as an ancient wellness retreat. If wellness meant near dehydration and smoke-induced hallucinations. Back home, drying off is a luxury. You don't have towels. You air dry, which in the humid jungle climate means never dry. Your clothing, once again, slaps against your damp skin like a damp hug from fate. And don't forget the bugs. The moment water touches your skin, the jungle seems to interpret it as an invitation to crawl, bite, or lay eggs. Under your tunic, a family of lice has taken up residence. You scratch, it doesn't help. You scratch again, then stop. Scratching in public is frowned upon unless you're a priest, in which case it's divine twitching. Clothing is supposed to be clean too. But let's be honest, laundry is a performance art here. You beat your clothes against a rock in the river, which mostly just redistributes the dirt. Then you lay them out to dry on bushes or flat stones, where they collect dust, pollen, and occasionally frogs. If it rains, you start over. If it doesn't, you just pretend they're clean and hope no one sniff tests your tunic. Now, let's discuss teeth. Wait. Nope, that's next section. For now, let's talk about feet. You walk barefoot almost everywhere. Through mud, over rocks, into temples, out of dreams. You've developed calluses thicker than your average tortilla. But that doesn't stop the worms. The jungle floor is alive, and it loves your skin. Historians still argue whether the Maya were obsessive about cleanliness or if ritual purity was mostly for show. Some records suggest people bathed daily. Others say the average peasant bathed less often, maybe once a week, maybe once per cosmic alignment. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Cleanliness was a virtue. Achieving it, a full-time job. Meanwhile, your spiritual cleanliness is constantly at risk. Did you walk past a shrine without bowing? Did you sneeze without apologizing to the wind god? Did you dream of an owl, which might mean death, drought, or just bad beans? You're never quite sure. But you worry. Because here, bad hygiene might bring shame, and bad karma could bring plagues. You look at your hands, dirt under every nail, a mosquito bite swelling on your knuckle, ash in the creases. And yet, you know, by local standards, you're spotless. Back inside the house, your mother tells you to change your tunic. You look at her. She looks at the two other tunics you own. Both are stiffer than ambition and smell like ancient socks. You choose the least horrifying one, shake it out, dislodging a spider, and pull it over your head. There, fresh as morning mildew. There's no deodorant, no perfume, No scented oils unless you're preparing for death or seduction, and you are doing neither. You smell like smoke, earth, and regret, which, in this context, makes you average. And so, with water behind you and bugs still clinging, you carry on. Not clean, not dirty. Just Maya. You step outside, dressed in your one and only tunic, still damp from its questionable wash, and smelling faintly of mildew, charcoal, and despair. The sun's already climbing, baking the earth like a god-sized griddle. And your body's about to become breakfast for every biting insect within a 5-mile radius. Welcome to the wardrobe of the Maya, ancient, airy, and deeply unfair. You wear a simple woven cloth, likely made from cotton if your family's doing well, or from maguey fibers if they're not. Spoiler, they're not. It's rough against your skin, and the fibers rub your armpits raw if you move too much. Which is unfortunate because move too much is the baseline lifestyle here. There are no seams, no tailoring, no airflow engineering. It's basically a rectangle with a hole for your head. Fashion forward? Maybe. Comfortable? Absolutely not. You shift your weight, and the hem of your tunic scratches your knees like passive-aggressive sandpaper. It's not itchy in the way of a bad wool sweater. It's itchy in the way that makes you question whether your skin was a good idea. And don't even think about undergarments. They don't exist. There is no Maya word for boxers. You have no socks, no belts, no drawstrings, no dignity. You do, however, have lice, a lot of them, and the occasional flea. Your scalp feels like it's hosting a music festival for parasites. You've tried combing them out with a bone pick. Once, it made you cry. Women have it even rougher. Their hue pills, loose-fitting blouses, are stiffer than yours and often embroidered with symbols that tell the whole village who they are, what lineage they belong to, and whether or not they cried during their last spiritual ceremony. It's like Facebook, but with more mosquito bites and fewer privacy settings. And here's a fun historical twist. While noblewomen might own several outfits, some even dyed with expensive cochineal reds or Maya blues, you, the humble peasant, wear the same thing every day until it rots, tears, or mysteriously disappears into a patch of mud never to be seen again. Washing it is an ordeal. Replacing it, practically a religious miracle. Speaking of footwear, you have none. Or if you do, it's a pair of sandals made from woven reeds that last about as long as your patience. The straps dig into your skin, offering all the support of a wet noodle. Walking through jungle terrain barefoot sounds cool until you meet your first thorn bush, or step in fire ants, or stub your toe on an angry god statue. You try not to think about how much your feet hurt. But it's hard. Every step is a negotiation between pain and forward motion. And when it rains, everything turns to mud. Slippery, soul-sucking mud that eats shoes and dignity alike. You've fallen in it. Everyone has. You never truly get clean again. Parasites thrive here, not just lice and fleas, but ticks, chiggers, and worms with unpronounceable names. You itch constantly. You scratch constantly. Sometimes you bleed a little. Nobody notices, because they're too busy scratching themselves. Now, let's pause for a curious historical side note. Maya nobility occasionally filed their teeth into shapes. Points, crosses, even inlaid precious stones like jade. Which sounds cool until you remember that this was done without anesthesia, sterilization, or regret. It's decorative dental trauma. But don't worry, you're not noble. You just have crooked teeth and halitosis. But back to clothes. Your only other garment is a ceremonial one, used once a year for a fertility rite you don't understand and hope never to repeat. It's stiff, stained with something unidentifiable, and stored in a pouch that smells like cave moss. Wearing it feels like punishment. You secretly hope it gets eaten by rats. Historians still debate whether Maya peasant clothing was utilitarian elegance or woven misery. On one hand, it kept you marginally covered and absorbed sweat like a cloth sponge. On the other, it offered zero protection from the sun, the bugs, or the shame of unexpected breezes. You shift your tunic again, trying to get it to sit right on your shoulders. It doesn't. It never does. Your skin is already sticking to it, and it's not even mid-morning. You could take it off, but then you'd get yelled at, and also possibly cursed. Modesty, after all, is divine law. Even when sweat is literally running down your spine like it's trying to escape. You look around. Everyone else is dressed the same. Drab, threadbare, sticky. You wonder if it's better to be naked. Then you remember the bugs and unthink that thought immediately. You head off toward your work assignment for the day, feeling the cloth bunch under your arms. Your thighs stick together as you walk. Your back itches. Your feet hurt. Your scalp burns. And your dignity? Gone. Absorbed into the rough cotton fibers like so many tears. Still, you trudge on. Because in the world of the Maya, clothing isn't about expression. It's about survival. And even then, barely. Your tooth starts to ache around mid-morning. A slow, pulsing throb in your jaw that you try to ignore, the way you ignore screaming babies or the smell of spoiled maize. But it's there. It always is. Your constant companion, like a spirit guide. If that spirit were tiny, angry, and lived inside your gum line with a pickaxe. You run your tongue along your teeth. Bad idea. You hit a sharp edge where one molar cracked last month during breakfast, on what was either a pebble or a kernel of corn with a death wish. It hasn't healed. It won't. Because there are no dentists in your world. No toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no floss. Your entire dental hygiene routine consists of don't chew on bones and hope for the best. The Maya understood a lot of things. Astronomy, math, pyramid engineering. But oral hygiene? Not so much. Your teeth are stained from years of chewing corn, chili, and whatever other blessedly soft food your gums can handle. There's a permanent layer of something gritty on your molars. It could be ash. It could be stone dust from grinding maize. It could be regret. A quirky historical tidbit. Maya nobility often decorated their teeth by filing them into ornate shapes or drilling tiny holes and inserting jade or turquoise. It was a sign of status and spiritual strength. But for regular people like you, your dental adventure consists of aching, rotting, or, in extreme cases, having your tooth yanked out by someone with strong hands and no moral hesitation. You think about that sometimes. Whether it'd be better to lose the tooth than keep suffering. But removal means tying a string around it and yanking hard, or using a stone chisel and praying to Ixchel, the goddess of healing, between screams. Pain relief? Maybe a bit of fermented honey or crushed herbs. Mostly just yelling. Sometimes fainting. Your grandmother tells you to chew on a chili pod. It numbs the pain, she says. You believe her, because not believing her has never ended well. You bite into the chili. It doesn't numb the pain. It adds to it. Your eyes water. Your nose runs. Your tooth still throbs. But now you also hate chili. The pain radiates to your temple. Your head pounds. But you can't stop working. Pain is part of life. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. Your uncle once lost a tooth mid-conversation and didn't even pause. Just spat it out and kept weaving baskets. You envy the nobles with their jade teeth. Sure, they might also die young. But at least they die stylishly. They die. As the day drags on, the heat makes everything worse. Your mouth dries out. Your breath could knock over a jaguar. You try chewing some fresh mint leaves, if you can find any. But mostly, you chew on twigs or nothing. Chewing helps distract from the pain until it doesn't. And forget modern medicine. There are no antibiotics, no root canals, no numbing gel with cheerful mint flavor. You treat infections with rituals, prayers, and smoke. Or leeches. Because yes, the Maya believed in balancing bodily fluids, and sucking out bad blood was a way to restore harmony. Which is fine unless the leech goes rogue. Your neighbor once had a tooth abscess so bad it swelled his face like a pumpkin. They performed a ceremony to cleanse his body. He died anyway. The gods accepted his spirit. The rest of the village accepted that teeth are basically little ticking time bombs. Historians still argue whether Maya medicine helped more than it harmed. On one hand, they had an encyclopedic knowledge of herbs, antiseptics, anesthetics, anti-inflammatories. On the other, they also believed in spirits, hot-cold body balances, and rubbing toad slime on boils. You pick your poison, literally. You pause to drink water. It tastes like the river and suspicion. You swirl it around your mouth, hoping to flush out whatever ghost is haunting your molars. It doesn't help. The pain flares again. You swear quietly under your breath, then apologize out loud in case a god heard that. Because here, pain isn't just pain. It might be a sign of spiritual imbalance, of a forgotten offering, of ancestral disappointment. You mentally scroll through everything you've done wrong in the last 3 days. The list is long. The day ends, and the pain does not. You lie down on your mat, one arm across your face, the other clutching your jaw. Your family sleeps around you. One cousin snores. Another kicks in his dreams. The fire crackles. And you count heartbeats, waiting to fall asleep before your tooth explodes. Tomorrow, you'll chew tortilla again. You'll smile at someone and feel the nerve twinge again. You'll joke about it, because everyone does. But inside, you'll be screaming. Because in the Maya world, dawn again. You're up before the sun, before the birds, before even the smoke. Your body creaks like an old canoe as you stand. Your back is stiff, your legs sore, and your hands already clenched for another day of hard labor. There is no Monday here, no weekend. Just sunrise, sweat, and survival. Time is measured in calluses. You grab your digging stick, the kuul, and begin the walk toward the milpa, your family's slash and burn cornfield. It's not near. Nothing is near. You walk through mud, thorns, and more mosquitoes than air. The trail winds through brush and uneven terrain. You step carefully, not out of fear, but because you've already tripped on that exact route 3 times this week. The sun rises fast, like it's chasing you. And by the time you reach the field, the humidity has already soaked your tunic. You haven't done a single task yet, and you smell like someone who wrestled a swamp and lost. Farming is sacred here. Maize is life. So your labor isn't just survival, it's a cosmic duty. Your every movement honors the gods. Every cornstalk is a prayer. Every weed you pull is a whisper of hope. And yet, spiritual nobility doesn't make your blisters smaller. You drive your digging stick into the soil. No metal tools, no wheels, just a pointed stick and the relentless pounding of your own heartbeat. You clear brush, plant seeds, haul wood. Sometimes you cut down trees with a stone axe so dull it might as well be a firm handshake. You wipe sweat from your eyes and keep going. Because if you don't plant, you don't eat. And if the gods don't send rain, none of it will matter anyway. Your younger siblings work beside you. There may be 6, maybe 5. You've lost track. But they carry baskets, gather firewood, and swat bugs with a seriousness that makes your heart hurt. Childhood isn't a phase here, it's a deadline. If you're old enough to stand, you're old enough to grind corn or carry water. There are no toys, no playdates, just labor and the occasional lizard chase. Women work just as hard, often harder. Your sister spends the morning hauling water from the cenote, balanced on her head like a feat of engineering, and the afternoon grinding maize until her knuckles bleed. Then she cooks, then she weaves, then she sings your baby brother to sleep, then she does it again the next day, again the next, again. Jobs are not chosen. They are assigned by birth, by family, or by whoever yells loudest. If you're lucky, you stay in farming. If you're less lucky, you might be conscripted to help build temples, hauling massive stone blocks up steep pyramid steps with nothing but ropes and a prayer that you don't slip. Now, let's talk trades. Blacksmith doesn't exist. The Maya didn't have iron, but they did have specialized roles like tanners, potters, and weavers. These jobs are just as backbreaking, often performed in stifling huts with open flames and no airflow. Imagine tanning hides in a room where the only ventilation is your own gasping. One of your friends became a scribe. That's the dream. Working indoors, holding a stylus instead of a shovel. But to get there, he had to memorize hundreds of glyphs, study astronomy, and become fluent in calendar math. You, on the other hand, barely remember your own birthday. Historians often celebrate the brilliance of the Maya calendar, the long count, the tzolk'in, the hab. But they rarely mention that for the average person, these calendars just meant more work. Every ritual day had expectations. Planting days, sacrifice days, fasting days. Your life is a spreadsheet of pain, without formulas. By midday, your arms tremble from exhaustion. You sit for a moment, no chairs, of course, just a rock with ambition. You drink from your water gourd. It tastes warm, mossy, and faintly like frog. It's fine. Everything's fine. You eat a tortilla, try not to think about your sore joints, and return to digging. Because the sun doesn't care, the gods don't pause, and your father is watching. Historians still debate whether Maya peasants suffered more from labor or from spiritual pressure. Some believe communal identity gave purpose to the pain. Others argue that the divine burden only amplified the misery. You, meanwhile, just want to sit for 5 more minutes. But you can't, because the corn won't plant itself. The firewood won't gather itself. And the gods won't answer prayers made from laziness. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand. Dirt sticks to sweat. A beetle crawls across your sandal. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbles. You look up, then down. The field waits. And so do you. Because here in the Maya world, labor isn't a part of life. It is life. And there's no way out. You thought the work was bad. Then the weather reminded you what true suffering feels like. There are no seasons in the Maya world, only cycles of punishment. The dry season is so dry it cracks the earth like an overbaked tortilla. The rainy season is so wet it turns your hut into a soup bowl with chickens. And you? You exist somewhere in between, always damp, always itchy, always negotiating your body's slow surrender to the climate. It's midday now, and the sun isn't shining. It's blazing. Not like a warm summer glow, more like a celestial interrogation lamp. There is no shade in the milpa, and your tunic is soaked through with sweat. The fabric clings like guilt, and your skin feels like it's being slow roasted for a divine buffet. You wipe your forehead, but there's nothing dry to wipe with. Your hands are sweaty. Your tunic is sweaty. The air is made of sweat. Your sweat is sweating. No breeze, no clouds, just sun and suffering. Your feet are baking against the hot earth. Your face is burning. You long for something, anything to cool you down. But fans haven't been invented, and ice is a myth told by traveling merchants who probably just meant cold rivers. In the distance, thunder grumbles like a god, clearing its throat. You look up. Gray clouds are forming. Within minutes, the sky breaks. A torrential downpour turns dust into sludge, your field into a puddle, and your hope into a joke. You run, or try to. Your sandals are now suction cups, yanking against the mud with every step. You splash through your own crops, slipping twice and catching yourself only once. By the time you reach your hut, you're soaked through and mud-stained. You look like a collapsed statue. Inside, the thatched roof is leaking in 12 different places. Water drips from the rafters onto your sleeping mat, your sister's loom, and a bowl of beans that now qualify as soup. The walls are melting. You sit in the corner, arms wrapped around your knees, watching your belongings float past like tiny boats in a flood. At night, the temperature drops. Not a little, a lot. The same hut that boiled you by day now chills you to the bone. The fire's gone out, the air is wet, and your blanket is thinner than a tortilla wrapper. You huddle beside your siblings, all of you shivering under one stiff cotton sheet. You try to sleep, but the cold nibbles at your fingers and toes like angry ants. You'd start the fire again, but you're out of dry wood, or energy, or faith. Your clothes never dry completely. They stay damp and clingy, like the memory of embarrassment. You hang them on the wall during the day, but the humidity just laughs. You put them back on the next morning, and they slap against your body like chilled seaweed. Here's a scholarly debate for fun. Some believe the Maya thrived because they adapted to their harsh environment. Others think the environment itself slowly crushed the civilization over time. Cycles of drought leading to crop failure, rebellion, collapse. You lean toward the latter, because right now you'd rebel if someone asked you to fetch firewood. And let's not forget the bugs. Oh, the bugs. Rain brings them out like applause. Mosquitoes swarm in thick clouds. Beetles crawl into your mat. Frogs croak from the roof. You once woke up with a centipede curled on your neck like a fleshy necklace. You didn't scream. You were too cold to open your mouth. In the dry months, it's the opposite. Dust storms, cracked lips, and fire risk. You remember a friend whose hut caught fire from a lightning strike? They saved a pot and a chicken. Everything else? Gone. Rebuilt with mud and tears. There are no windows to close. No insulation. No temperature control. You are entirely at the mercy of the sky. And the sky is moody. Clothing doesn't help. Your tunic, once stiff with sweat, now stiff with cold. You curl your legs to your chest. You can see your breath in the air. That shouldn't happen in a jungle. And yet, here you are, freezing in a land known for heat. Historians don't agree on how the Maya dealt with extreme weather. Some say they built clever drainage systems and agricultural terraces. Others say that despite innovation, they were overwhelmed by climate instability. You say they probably did both, and still shivered in damp huts, just like you. Because here in the Maya world, nature doesn't care how many pyramids you build. It rains when it wants. It scorches when it pleases. And you just try not to drown or bake. You're thirsty. Again, not oh, I could use a drink, thirsty. More like my tongue feels like a piece of smoked leather, thirsty. The kind of thirst where your lips crack when you blink and your throat squeaks when you breathe. But you hesitate. Because the water, it's trying to kill you. There is no faucet, no filter, no sparkling mineral version with cucumber and a curly straw. Just river, cenote, or rainwater collected in a gourd that smells like history and mildew. You pick up the gourd now, hesitating as your nose wrinkles. Something's floating in it. Possibly a bug. Possibly something that used to be a bug. You drink it anyway. Because thirst is a more immediate threat than parasites. Maya water sources were many, but few were trustworthy. Cenotes, those deep, natural limestone sinkholes, were sacred and semi-reliable. But they were also used for bathing, ritual offerings, and occasionally human sacrifices. That's right. Your drinking water might be flavored with a little bit of cousin Hunal from last year's equinox celebration. The water's warm, slightly cloudy. It hits your stomach like a questionable handshake. You wait, quietly listening to your own gut. It gurgles ominously. Could be fine, could be a week of stomach demons. Bathing is an entirely different gamble. Technically, it's encouraged, spiritually cleansing, good for rituals. But there's a belief, still lingering, that opening your pores with hot water makes you vulnerable. To disease, to spirits, to drafts. Bathing too often? Suspicious behavior. It's like saying, "Hey world, I'd like to catch a mysterious fever and cry for 3 days." You walk to the river. Carefully. The stones are slippery and jagged. The sun beats down, and already you can see tiny clouds of insects forming above the water like the opening act to a bad dream. You dunk your feet. Leeches, present. Water clarity, questionable. Your reflection, concerned. You kneel and splash water on your arms, trying not to think about the family upstream washing their goat or the man who vomited here yesterday after too much fermented corn beer. Soap? You have a clump of crushed plant ash and prayers. You scrub, but it's not satisfying. It's more like rearranging the dirt. Now for a fun fringe fact. The Maya sometimes bathed in groups, and Temazcal's sweat lodges, those little domed stone steam rooms, were popular among nobles and priests. They'd pour water on hot stones, sit in steam, and chant. You tried it once, passed out halfway through. Woke up convinced you were a lizard. Still not sure if that was spiritual or heat stroke. Back in your hut, the drinking water is running low. Your younger sibling eyes the gourd, then eyes you. You sigh and hand it over. Sharing is essential. Hydration even more so. But the cost of water isn't just physical. It's spiritual. Offerings must be made to the rain god Chak, especially during dry season. You've watched neighbors slash their own palms to bleed into the soil, begging for clouds. You've seen chickens sacrificed and their blood sprinkled into wells, hoping to appease the sky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The gods are moody. Historians still argue whether Maya water rituals were acts of desperation or deep ecological understanding. Some believe they were proto-environmentalists, managing water with complex reservoirs and canal systems. Others point out that entire cities collapsed when drought struck, suggesting even the most devout prayers couldn't beat climate chaos. At night, you lie down, throat dry again. You cough once, then twice. You remember a cousin who drank from the wrong gourd and didn't stop coughing for a week. Then he stopped altogether. You pull your damp blanket higher, wondering if the headache forming behind your eyes is from dehydration, heat, or the spiritual consequences of skipping your last offering. You dream of clean water, cold, clear, bubbling from stone. You drink endlessly in the dream. You feel refreshed, light, alive. Then you wake up, thirstier than ever. Because here in the Maya world, water is everything. It nourishes, it cleanses, it poisons, it forgets. But now the sun has dipped behind the trees. The smoke from the fire curls gently toward the thatched ceiling. The chatter of the village fades into soft insect music, rhythmic and strangely comforting. And your breath slows. You lie on your mat, spine pressed against woven reeds that have softened over time, or maybe you've just stopped noticing. The air is cooler now. The sticky weight of the day lifts, leaving behind only fatigue and a stillness so complete it hums. Outside, a few stars peek through the canopy. The gods are watching, but they're quiet tonight. No thunder, no rain, just peace. Your muscles ache in a familiar way. Your mouth is dry, but no longer desperate. The itch behind your ear is still there, but you don't care enough to scratch. For once, your body is still, and stillness is a luxury. The fire crackles. A child laughs in their sleep. Somewhere, a night bird calls out. The world keeps turning. The calendar spins its sacred gears. And you, small, sore, and completely ordinary, are still here. You've survived another day. Not triumphantly, not cleanly, but quietly, like a stone that endures rain without complaint. Your eyes close. The pain recedes. Even your toothache has, for now, surrendered. And in this moment, just before sleep claims you, you feel something almost impossible. Peace. Hey guys, tonight we take a trip. Not to somewhere peaceful or dreamy, but to the Tang Dynasty, 742 CE, in the heart of the empire's capital, Chang'an. There's no soft blanket here, no mattress, just a rice-stuffed pillow that's about as forgiving as a rock, and a mat that's woven mostly of regrets. You wake up to the sweet sound of coughing neighbors, crowing roosters, and a street vendor yelling something incomprehensible about hot buns that you can't afford. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are the fleas. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your city and local time in the comments, because misery loves time-stamped company. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes. It's dark but not quiet. You're lying on a straw mat beside 3 other family members, one of whom is snoring, one is scratching themselves, and the last one has rolled halfway onto your leg. You wiggle free, sit up, and immediately regret it. Your back cracks like bamboo snapping in a storm. Your knees are sore, your neck is stiff, and your lower spine is sending urgent messages in Old Chinese. The room smells like damp wood, burnt cooking oil, and unwashed feet. You inhale deeply. You shouldn't have. You cough, triggering a coughing chain reaction from the next room over, which echoes through the thin wooden walls like some tragic symphony. You try to stretch, but there's no space. Your home is 1 room, maybe 2 if your parents are lucky. Everything happens here. Sleeping, eating, fighting, sewing, occasionally crying in silence. Your younger sibling whines in their sleep and kicks you in the ribs. You respond by pretending it didn't happen. Because conflict takes energy, and energy is expensive. There's no clock, but you know it's time to get up. The street outside is starting to wake, and your family has been up since before up was a thing. You slip on your robe, a linen wrap that's somewhere between medieval tunic and emotional burden. It's stiff with sweat and smells like last month's rain. You shuffle to the door, slide it open, and immediately regret that too. The air is heavy with fog, soot, and something vaguely fishy. The ground is still wet from last night's rain, and the wood beneath your feet is slimy with mold. Your sandals, woven straw, damp and breaking apart, offer all the protection of a soggy coaster. You nod at your neighbor, who is already fanning the hearth with a sleepy expression that says, "We are both the same species, but I wish I weren't." You wave. He grunts. Social interaction. Complete. Let's talk location. You live in the poorer section of Chang'an, which is technically the cultural center of the world right now. Technically. Your alley is crammed with homes so close you can hear your neighbor blink. Every space between buildings is packed with tools, firewood, sleeping dogs, and ambitious rats. You step over a pile of steaming something. Don't ask. The city is beautiful on paper. Wide avenues, grand markets, glittering temples. But you? You're here, in the part of the city that never makes the travel scrolls. The walls are splintered. The drainage is a myth. And you share a single well with more people than you can count. The Tang Dynasty is at its cultural peak, they say. Poetry, art, trade, Silk Road dreams. But for you, it's all wooden bowls, sore joints, and trying to figure out if you can reuse yesterday's tea leaves for a fifth time. Spoiler, you can. It just tastes like boiled nostalgia. Historians still argue whether Chang'an was the world's most advanced metropolis, or simply an over-decorated trap for the lower classes. You, sitting here with your butt half asleep and your breakfast still imaginary, are leaning toward the second option. You finally stand up fully, stretch again, and hear something pop. Could be your spine, could be the roof tiles. Either way, it's not your problem. Yet. You sigh, adjust your robe, and step out into the city's awakening pulse. The sun hasn't risen fully, but the noise has. Someone's already beating a drum in the distance. A vendor calls out prices. A dog barks. You step in something. You don't ask what. And you think, this is going to be another very, very long day, if you survive it. Your home is trying to collapse again. Not dramatically, like a crumbling palace. No, more like a slow, passive-aggressive disintegration. The roof leaks in 6 places. The floor creaks like it's whispering threats. The walls, thin wooden planks smeared with mud. Keep out only the idea of weather. And privacy? That's been extinct longer than dinosaurs in this part of Chang'an. You share this fine architectural masterpiece with 5 humans, 2 chickens, and 1 ghost of your mother's disappointed expectations. Your father built this place himself with local timber and the architectural confidence of someone who had never met a ruler or a level. Everything is lopsided, everything leans, including you, because one of the supporting beams bowed during last spring's flood and hasn't recovered emotionally. You roll up your sleeping mat and hang it on the wall beside the cooking pot and someone's undergarments. This space is multifunctional. It's the bedroom, kitchen, living area, and hallway, all in one glorious 7-foot-wide room. The smell is complex. Old smoke, damp wood, rice vinegar, and whatever lived in that corner and died quietly. Your younger sibling is already stirring yesterday's rice in the pot. You nod. They nod. You both pretend that's a full conversation. Words are expensive in the morning. The hearth in the center is the home's only heat source, but the smoke never quite makes it out the small square vent in the wall. It collects just below the ceiling, adding a nice, slow-burning lung fog to your day. You've stopped noticing. Your lungs haven't. The ceiling leaks even when it's not raining. Somehow, condensation, gravity, and the house's desire to retire have all teamed up to drip water directly onto your bedding. You adjust a pot to catch the drip. It's a full-time job. Your neighbors aren't doing much better. From the cracks between your boards, you can hear someone grinding soybeans and a couple having a quiet, furious argument about pork. This counts as ambience. Now, the Tang Dynasty was a time of innovation, sure, if you were a scholar, official, or member of the elite. They had grand estates with courtyards and carved beams, ponds full of lotus blossoms, and poetry etched into the walls. You, on the other hand, have 3 bowls, a cracked teacup, and a shared towel that may or may not have belonged to your great-grandfather. You sit on a stool that's definitely more splinter than structure and glance around. There's a calendar on the wall, a painted bamboo scroll tracking lunar months and auspicious days. Today isn't one of them. A historical tidbit for your trouble. Tang homes often stored valuables in sealed clay jars buried under floorboards. You don't have valuables. You have a floorboard that lifts, and when someone sneezes. Sometimes, pigeons get trapped in the rafters. You try to shoo them out gently. Sometimes they ignore you. Other times, they drop something on your face while you sleep. You've given up resisting. This is their house now, too. Outside, the alley's noise builds. You can hear someone dragging a cart and a street singer warming up by coughing phlegm onto a wall. Children scream. A bamboo flute pierces the clamor, accompanied by a slapping sound that could be laundry or punishment. Possibly both. There's no such thing as insulation. In winter, you wear everything you own and still shiver. In summer, your walls trap heat like a clay oven, and you sweat until your soul leaves your body. Either way, your house is a mood. You duck into the kitchen, a corner with a brick stove and a cracked wok. Firewood is stacked nearby, damp and sullen. You use it anyway, because alternatives include starvation or eating raw rice, which is basically just edible gravel. Food hangs from the rafters, dried tofu skins, bundles of garlic, and something that once was a fish, but now just smells like ancient ocean trauma. There's a single jar of pickled turnip that you're pretending will last the whole week. It won't. Your mother is already outside sweeping the alley with a broom made of twigs. She's not sweeping for cleanliness. She's sweeping to maintain order. In a world this messy, one clean patch of earth feels like resistance. Historians still argue whether Tang Dynasty homes were cozy communal spaces or barely holding together boxes of stress. From your position, sitting in a smoky room, sharing your last rice grain with a pigeon that won't leave, you suspect the truth is both. You grab your tools for the day, a hoe, a water jug, and the faint hope that something will go wrong in someone else's life instead of yours for once. You take one last look around the room before stepping outside. Your bed is rolled, your pot is empty, and your home, somehow, is still standing. You whisper to the walls, "Don't collapse today, please." They groan back. You need to go to the toilet. Which is tragic, because toilet is a very generous term for what's about to happen. You step outside, holding a chipped clay jug of water in one hand and your dignity in the other. You walk past your neighbors, trying not to make eye contact, because they know exactly what that jug means. And soon, they'll hear what it means too. Privacy doesn't exist in the Tang Dynasty. The only thing separating your personal hygiene from a public event is how quickly you can get it over with. Your latrine is at the edge of the alley, behind a screen of rotting bamboo and shame. It's technically a pit in the ground, with 2 wooden planks laid across it, and a roof made of straw that left the concept of coverage several monsoons ago. There's no door, just hope. You balance yourself over the pit, trying not to breathe too deeply or think about physics. The smell could defeat a warhorse. There's buzzing. You don't ask what it is. You finish your business quickly, then reach for the toilet paper. Here's where things really spiral. In your time, you might take toilet paper, wet wipes, or even a working flush for granted. Here, you get 2 options: bamboo sticks or a scrap of paper that's been reused more times than your sandals. The bamboo stick is flat, maybe 6 inches long, and blessedly smooth if you're lucky. If you're not, splinters. Let's just say, gentle is key. You rinse the stick in your water jug, say a quiet prayer to the sanitation gods who definitely don't exist yet, and step back out into the alley, trying to walk normally. You don't. No one does. Now, a fun historical fact. The Tang were among the first to use true toilet paper, but only in imperial courts or elite homes. Ordinary people had to make do with scrap cloth, husks, or what nature provided. The rich got softness. You get bark. Some communal toilets exist, a row of holes dug over a ditch with a long plank and zero barriers. They smell like despair and chili oil. If you need to go during market day, you'll likely be elbow to elbow with a stranger discussing weather and bowel consistency simultaneously. No one's happy about it. Everyone pretends it's fine. The upper classes sometimes have porcelain chamber pots ornately painted with cranes or dragons, as if putting a majestic bird on your poop jar makes it any more glamorous. You once saw one in a noble's home. It gleamed like the moon. You almost wept. Meanwhile, sewage in the city flows through open ditches, where water, waste, and the occasional fish all share space. People toss waste buckets into the trench, hoping it'll wash away. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just stays there. You've seen children playing next to it. You've seen dogs drinking from it. You've stopped being surprised by anything. Now, you might think, well, at least it's better than nothing. But the chronic stench of human waste mixes with animal droppings, rotting produce, and the smell of cooking oil to form a scent best described as historically aggressive. At night, things get worse. You don't want to walk to the latrine in the dark, especially during ghost month. So you use a chamber pot, a clay bowl with a cracked lid tucked under the bed. It sloshes. You try not to think about it. Someone has to empty it the next morning. That someone is usually you. There's a phrase floating around in some Tang poetry about the fleeting beauty of life, the impermanence of joy, and the inevitable return to dust. You now believe it was inspired by their bathroom situation. You walk back into your home, trying not to touch anything with your jug-carrying hand. Your sibling gives you a knowing look. You nod solemnly. It's a shared trauma. You both sit quietly for a while, contemplating bamboo and the price of living. Historians still argue whether the Tang urban planning system, which included street toilets, ditches, and waste collectors, was progressive for its time or simply a chaotic mess dressed in incense. You have an opinion. It's not scholarly. It's deeply personal. And just as you settle back onto your wooden stool, the neighbor's toddler runs by barefoot, holding a dripping pot and laughing. You close your eyes and pretend you're deaf, for everyone's sake. Because here in the Tang Dynasty, relieving yourself isn't a relief. It's a calculated risk. And sometimes, a shared experience. Breakfast is here. And by here, I mean a small bowl of congee that looks suspiciously like the water you dumped your rice in last night, but warmer and with slightly more identity. You sit on the floor because chairs are for poets and people with back support privileges. The bowl is ceramic, cracked but still functioning, and the congee is beige. It doesn't steam so much as its size. A slow, defeated wisp curls upward and immediately vanishes, like your dreams. There's a sliver of pickled radish on the side. You stare at it, wondering if today's the day you'll get more than just a garnish. It's not. You eat the radish first just to get it over with, and chase it with a large spoonful of hot sadness. The texture is mushy, thin, and faintly grainy. It's like warm wallpaper paste with aspirations. Your stomach grumbles, possibly in protest, possibly in confusion. You chew even though chewing is optional. The rice has been boiled into submission. On rare days, there's a bit of scallion or, dare to dream, a thread of meat. Today is not rare. Today is rice and water and the memory of flavor. Your little brother makes a game of swirling the congee with his chopsticks, pretending it's a stormy ocean. You used to do that too, before you gave up. Now you just eat it and hope it stays down. Now, here's the fun part. Tang Dynasty cuisine can be rich and diverse. If you're wealthy, you're starting your day with fried pastries, honey-soaked fruits, slices of roasted pork, and a fermented millet wine chaser. There are restaurants in Chang'an that serve everything from stuffed buns to spicy duck necks. But for you? For a peasant, it's congee, always congee. Sometimes you dream of mantu, steamed wheat buns. You once had one at a festival. It was soft, pillowy, absurdly perfect. You cried a little. You still talk about it like it was a lost love. Your water is boiled, thankfully. Raw river water tends to come with bonus features, like dysentery or unexpected intestinal drama. But fuel is expensive, so the family drinks leftover millet beer instead. It's warm, slightly sour, and about 1% alcohol. It's not enough to make you forget this breakfast, but it helps you stop asking questions. The adults sip tea, mostly leaves soaked in hot water. Bitter, herbal, but at least it tastes like something. You're allowed a few sips if you behave. You misbehave and get some anyway. It's the closest thing you'll get to caffeine. Let's talk cooking. The kitchen is that smoky corner with a clay stove and three-legged pot. Firewood is damp. The flames sputter. The smoke does most of the seasoning. Your sister tends it with the intensity of a battlefield commander. She adds a pinch of salt, actual salt, smuggled from a neighbor who knows a guy who knows a smuggler. A historical tidbit for your empty bowl. The Tang Dynasty traded spices along the Silk Road. Saffron, pepper, even cinnamon could be found, in theory. In reality, they're stored under lock and key in the kitchens of nobles. You have ashes and aggressive hope. Sometimes you see vendors selling youtiao, long fried dough sticks, on the street. You sniff them from afar like a starving ghost, knowing one costs more than you'll earn in 2 days. You once found a discarded end of one. You didn't ask questions. You shared it. You finish your congee. Your stomach isn't full, but it's quiet, for now. Hunger here is like weather. It comes, it goes, it always returns. Your grandfather clinks his spoon against his bowl 3 times. A blessing or a warning. You do it too, just in case. Historians still debate whether Tang peasants had enough to eat or simply learned to live with less. Art shows smiling farmers with baskets of rice. Scrolls show banquet tables heavy with delicacies. Your table? It's the floor. And the delicacy is remembering what flavor used to be. You wipe your bowl with your fingers, lick them clean, and rinse the bowl in a basin of yesterday's dishwater. Soap? Number just friction and optimism. You put the bowl away, stand slowly, and feel that empty while full sensation. Your body has fuel, not enough to run, just enough to keep walking. Because here in the Tang Dynasty, food isn't about joy. It's about endurance and a lot of hot beige mush. Hot, you scratch your shoulder, then your neck, then your leg. Congratulations. Your outfit has done its job. Its job, of course, being to turn your entire body into a living itch. You're wearing your one good robe. Good, meaning it doesn't have a hole directly over your butt. It's made of hemp or ramie, coarse enough to file wood and absorbent enough to soak up every drop of sweat your body has to offer. It's long, loose, and always slightly damp. In winter, it freezes. In summer, it simmers. There is no in-between. You didn't choose this robe. This robe chose you. Or rather, it was passed down to you by an older sibling who outgrew it emotionally before physically. It smells like their dreams, and also mildew. You try to adjust it, but the fabric resists, like it has opinions. It clings where it shouldn't and sags where it mustn't. Every time you bend, the waistband shifts to somewhere vaguely treasonous. And under it, nothing. Because undergarments are a luxury for silk wearers and songwriters. Let's talk shoes. Or rather, shoe, singular, because one of yours gave up during last week's rainstorm and now lives in a ditch. The surviving one is straw, thin as a broken promise and fraying at the edges. You strap it on with twine. You tell yourself it's rustic. It's not. It's pitiful. Your feet are blistered, calloused, and permanently dyed with dust. You step outside and feel the road through every straw fiber. It's like walking barefoot while pretending you aren't. You shuffle, not out of laziness, but because lifting your foot means exposing your soul to gravel and emotional vulnerability. Nobles walk on silk carpets. You walk on sharp twigs and crushed pride. Some Tang Dynasty scrolls depict nobles in layered robes of silk, embroidered with phoenixes and clouds, sleeves so long they have to be held like spoiled children. These people glide through life like human teacups. You, by contrast, resemble a damp radish wrapped in burlap. And laundry? Laundry is an event, not something you do weekly, something you prepare for spiritually. It involves hauling your stiff robe down to the river, scrubbing it with ash or bean paste, and pounding it against a flat rock like you're punishing it for existing. The robe usually wins. Washing happens rarely. Drying takes even longer. You drape the garment on a bamboo pole and wait 2 days, or 4 if it rains. Welcome to perpetual dampness. There's no soap, just water, time, and hope. Sometimes someone adds flower petals for scent. Mostly you just smell like you. A quirky fact for your suffering. Tang courtiers sometimes perfume their robes with incense or hid sachets of crushed herbs inside their sleeves. It's rumored that the Empress herself once had a cloak that smelled like plum blossoms for a full year. You haven't smelled like a flower since that time you fell in a compost heap. Now, the bugs. Fleas, lice, the occasional tick. They live in your robe now. You are their landlord. They pay rent in itches and late-night paranoia. You scratch again. You don't know if it helps. But you do it anyway. It's your only form of control. You dream of silk. Once, a noble passed through your alley, and his robe shimmered in the sunlight like water. People gasped. You reached out to touch it. He recoiled. You were 8. You've never forgotten the shame or the softness. Historians still argue whether common Tang clothing was cleverly designed for the climate or just an endurance test. Some praise the simplicity. Others point out that simple is code for inadequate. You tighten the robe at your waist with a knotted sash that's starting to fray. You tell yourself it's fine, that this robe will last through the harvest season, maybe even the next. And when it finally tears in a way you can't hide, you'll patch it again. With the same thread you've used to sew shoes, fix sacks, and once close a chicken's wound. You look down at yourself, scratch one last time. Then you step into the street, confident in only one thing. You are 100% clothed and 0% comfortable. Your molar is whispering threats again. Deep, dull throbs that echo up your jaw and into your temple like some cruel percussion instrument. You try to ignore it, like you ignore hunger, foot blisters, and unsolicited life advice from elderly strangers. But this pain is louder than usual. Persistent, moody, medieval. You press your tongue against it. Bad decision. The ache flares like it's offended by the attention. It's the kind of pain that doesn't let you chew, breathe, or think properly. You're halfway through a sentence and suddenly you forget what language is because your mouth is screaming in Morse code. You reach into your robe for a twig. Not just any twig, a chewed, frayed willow stick. Your toothbrush, more or less. You gnaw on the end to fray it again, then gently rub it along your teeth. The willow's astringent oils might help, or they might not. This is less dental hygiene and more ceremonial hope. In the Tang Dynasty, toothbrushes haven't been invented in the modern sense. No toothpaste, no floss. You clean your teeth the way you clean gossip, by aggressively rubbing it away and hoping no one notices what's left behind. Your breath smells like yesterday's congee and despair, so you chew a mint leaf, not for flavor, for mercy. Mint is hard to come by, but worth it. Sometimes you chew tea leaves instead. They're bitter and disappointing, like most of your decisions. Let's say the pain gets worse. What's next? A visit to the neighborhood healer. She's 90, blind in one eye, and has an herbal recipe for everything, including heartbreak and missing livestock. You open your mouth. She nods wisely. Then she applies a paste made of garlic, sesame oil, and prayers. Spoiler, it doesn't help. If your situation becomes truly unbearable, there's always extraction. You sit on a stool. Someone holds your shoulders. Someone else grabs your jaw. The third person uses a pair of metal tongs. No numbing, no countdown, no warning. Just a sudden, violent pop, followed by bleeding, screaming, and several weeks of silent resentment. A quirky tidbit for the brave. Tang nobility sometimes painted their teeth black. It was a beauty standard, a sign of elegance. You think of that now as you rub your infected gum with a finger and consider painting your own teeth out of sheer spite. Meanwhile, medicine in the Tang era is equal parts genius and guesswork. Doctors understand pulse diagnosis, QoE imbalance, and the power of bitter herbs. But bacteria? Germ theory? Nope. Your toothache is either hot wind in the stomach or anger lodged in the spleen. Either way, the cure is probably a tea that tastes like boiled socks. You drink a cup of that tea now. It's made from something the healer calls dragon root, but you're pretty sure it's just old bark. It numbs your mouth slightly, or poisons you. Jury's still out. Historians still argue whether Tang medical texts reflect true scientific insight or just elaborate ways to justify suffering with metaphors. You're leaning toward creative rationalization, especially when you're told to tie a red string around your wrist to draw the pain out of your molar. It doesn't work. But now you look fashionable, in a superstitious way. You've also heard of leeches being used, attached to the gums to draw out the illness. You passed on that. You've got enough mouths involved already. As the day wears on, the pain dulls slightly. Maybe you've gone numb. Maybe you've just accepted it as part of your soul now. You try to heat a dumpling. The left side of your face protests violently. You chew with the right. The dumpling is cold, but it's food. You wince through every bite. The pain flares again at sunset. You squint at the horizon and wonder if this is the moment you become a Tang Dynasty ghost, eternally moaning and haunting people over dental care. Because here, teeth aren't for smiling. They're for surviving. And sometimes, surrendering. You're up before the sun again, because the sun takes breaks. You don't. You rise slowly from your mat, muscles stiff, back bent, hands already sore from what they haven't done yet. Your stomach growls. It's not asking for food. It's issuing a formal complaint. You silence it by drinking warm millet water. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. It's time for work. You grab your tools, a wooden hoe, a woven basket, and a dull blade, and walk out into the haze. The streets are still dark, the air still heavy with last night's cooking smoke and unspoken dread. You pass the market before it opens, the stalls covered in cloth like they're sleeping. You're not sleeping. You're heading to the fields, You work in the paddy today. Not rice planting, that was last season, but turning soil. It's backbreaking work. The ground is wet, thick, and sucks at your feet like it wants to keep you. You stab the hoe into the mud. Again, again, again. The motion becomes a rhythm, the pain becomes background noise, and your hands form blisters on top of last week's blisters. Children run past you, carrying buckets of water. They're 5, maybe 6. It doesn't matter. Childhood ends around the same time you can lift a rock. These kids don't complain. They just squint and keep moving. You used to be one of them. Now you just try to avoid stepping on them. Your sister is working nearby. She carries a yoke across her shoulders, water sloshing from 2 clay pots balanced at either end. Her knees are swollen, her back curved from years of this same motion. After she finishes here, she'll cook, weave, and try to tutor your younger brother with her remaining energy, which is roughly equivalent to a tired candle. There are no weekends, no rest days. There are only festival days, and even those come with extra work. Cleaning, carrying, preparing offerings. The concept of day off exists only in Confucian poems and your imagination. Let's say you're lucky and born into a family of artisans. You'd still be working from dawn to nightfall, crafting lacquerware or carving inkstones with meticulous repetition. And if you're a blacksmith, tanner, or brickmaker, your lungs would already be rebelling, and your hands would be permanently shaped like your tools. You think labor is noble because you've been told it is, not because it feels that way. A historical tidbit for your calloused hands. The Tang had a relatively advanced labor system. Organized guilds, state-run workshops, even civil service exams for certain posts. But none of that applies to you. You didn't take an exam. You took what was given. And what was given is this mud. Artisans are celebrated in scrolls. Farmers are praised in poems. But those scrolls weren't written by anyone who ever had to pull a water buffalo out of a ditch. You pause at noon. The sun is directly overhead and disapproving. You squat beside a rock, unwrap a cloth parcel containing a small rice ball, and eat silently. The rice is cold. There's a sliver of salted plum in the middle. You pretend it's meat. A bee hovers near your face. You swat at it and almost fall over. Your friend nearby laughs. You don't. Your friend's laugh turns into a cough. It lasts longer than it should. Your feet are soaked. Your robe is muddy. Your soul is somewhere on a rock, napping. You get back up. Because if you don't, someone will tell your supervisor, and your family's grain allowance might be cut. That's how this works. You perform, or you pay. Historians still argue whether Tang labor policies reflected a well-structured system of collective prosperity or simply organized exhaustion. You have thoughts, but no time to share them. You finish your work just as the light fades. You carry your tools home, shoulders slumped, eyes stinging from the wind. You pass a noble being carried on a palanquin. His robe is clean. His face is plump. He nods politely. You nod back and think about shoving your hoe through the nearest wall. At home, you rinse your hands in cold water and count the new cuts. Then you sit. Just sit. For one glorious minute. And then you stand. Because the firewood still needs gathering, and the gods still need their offerings. And your body? It doesn't care anymore. The sky is dark, and not in a poetic, star-filled way. No. This is the kind of darkness that breathes cold into your bones. The kind of chill that waits until you're asleep, then crawls into your lungs and politely ruins your morning. It's winter in Chang'an, which means your wooden home is now a large, decorative freezer with personality disorders. There's no insulation. The walls are thin planks that rattle with every gust, like they're whispering about how little they're doing to help. You curl into your robe, which has all the heat retention of a wet napkin. Your breath fogs in the air. You watch it. It's the only thing moving this early. You huddle with your family near the fire pit. The flames crackle with enthusiasm, but they're small. Fuel is scarce. Too much firewood used today means none for tomorrow. So you sit, shoulder to shoulder, wrapped in shared body heat and limited hope. At night, you sleep in a heap. Siblings on one side, parents on the other, all pressed together like steamed buns, cooling too slowly. You sleep in your clothes because there's no choice. Your blanket is a patchwork of old cloth, stuffed with cotton, dreams, and a few uninvited bugs. Your feet, frozen, always. You try to tuck them against someone's back, but then they roll away. So you curse quietly into the straw and wait for sleep, or frostbite, whichever comes first. Summer is no better. It arrives like a hammer. The air turns wet and thick, like hot porridge you're forced to inhale. Your robe clings to your body like a possessive ghost. Sweat pools in places you didn't know could exist in this century. You try to sit still, hoping your body will evaporate. It doesn't. You fan yourself with a scrap of palm leaf. It folds. You unfold it. It folds again. You throw it across the room. The house heats up like a clay oven. The walls trap every degree of sunlight. There's no cross breeze, just the occasional whimper from your younger sibling, who's learning that childhood is mostly about sweating and wishing for clouds. You try sleeping on the floor. It's cooler down there, but only in theory. Your mat absorbs heat all day and releases it all night. Like it's practicing revenge, you flip the mat. It's hot on the other side too. You flip your expectations. Same result. A quick historical note while you fan yourself with your hand. Elite homes in the Tang dynasty sometimes had air channels built into their floors, early cooling systems. Some even hung wet cloth in doorways to catch passing breezes. You, on the other hand, wet a rag and wear it on your head like a sad scholar. And when it rains, the temperature drops, yes, but so does your roof. The water seeps in through the ceiling like a guest who wasn't invited but brought emotional baggage anyway. The floor floods. Your robe gets damp. Again, it never dries. You start to forget what dry feels like. Was it ever real? Or just something poets made up? Bugs love this weather. Mosquitoes form choirs. Fleas host family reunions in your blanket. Centipedes wander across the floor like they own it. You once found one under your bowl. You offered it the rest of your congee out of respect. Historians still debate whether Tang housing adapted well to the changing seasons or if people simply got really good at suffering. You've cast your vote. Your clothing doesn't help. In winter, it's not thick enough. In summer, it's too thick. You're either shivering or boiling. Sometimes both. You call it Tang climate syndrome. There's no cure. You try to go outside, but the air is no better. Winter wind cuts through your robe like a tax official through excuses. Summer heat makes walking feel like dragging your skeleton through soup. But you keep going, because the fire needs feeding, the market needs running, and your job doesn't care what season it is. Your back aches, your skin stings, your mind is foggy, but your feet keep moving. Because here, weather isn't just background noise, it's the second government. And you are definitely not on its good side. You're thirsty, which is a problem because water in the Tang dynasty is like a street performer. It might surprise you, it might inspire you, or it might quietly destroy your digestive system. Your family gets its water from a communal well, about a 5-minute walk from your alley. Longer if you're barefoot, or if the local goat decides to block traffic again. You carry a clay jug, already chipped, and pray that the queue isn't long. It always is. Water waits for no one, but everyone waits for water. The well is deep, dark, and smells vaguely metallic. The rope creaks as you lower the bucket, and you hear a distant plunk, a reminder that gravity works, and so do you. You haul it up slowly, your arms burning, and pour the contents into your jug. It sloshes. You try not to spill. You spill. This water might be clean. It might not. There's no test. You use your nose, your eyes, and your deeply honed survival instincts. If it doesn't smell like dead fish or sewer ghosts, it's probably drinkable. Back home, your mother boils it over the stove, or tries to. Firewood is scarce. You sip the hot water cautiously. It scalds your tongue. You sip again. Now it just tastes like boiled dirt. Refreshing. On good days, she adds mint or tea leaves. On bad days, she adds nothing. On worse days, the water was never boiled to begin with, and you end up revisiting your last 3 meals in reverse. Bathing is an even bigger ordeal. The local bathhouse costs money, and bathing too often is seen as suspicious behavior unless you're rich, diseased, or very recently possessed by a demon. You've heard some officials bathe every 3 days. Wild. Your household bathes once a week, maybe. You heat water over the fire, then crouch behind a bamboo screen with a bucket, a rag, and humility. Soap? That's a modern fantasy. You use crushed bean pulp or rice water and scrub until you feel slightly less cursed. You bathe quickly, efficiently, publicly sometimes. The screen blows away. The neighbor's goat wanders past. You've seen them. They've seen you. Everyone pretends nothing happened. No one makes eye contact for a month. A fringe historical tidbit. Noble families sometimes had indoor baths with perfumed water and scented oils. Imperial concubines were said to bathe in flower-infused pools while being serenaded by flute music. You once bathed next to a duck and considered it an upgrade. Your tooth starts to throb during terse. Not loudly, but insistently. Like it's tapping out a request for mercy on your jawbone. You try to ignore it. Everyone else is. But it's hard to commune with God when your molar is staging a rebellion. You shift on the wooden bench and press your tongue to the spot. Bad idea. The pain flares up like divine judgment. You wince. Brother Thomas notices. He raises one eyebrow, then nods slightly. Tooth pain solidarity. Monks have no secrets, especially not dental ones. Let's be clear, there are no toothbrushes. Not even a chewed twig, no peppermint paste, no floss, no nightly rinse and spit. You clean your teeth, if at all, by rinsing with ale and possibly using a cloth to rub the plaque off. Gently. Unless you're Brother Ambrose, who swears by scraping with a fishbone. He also believes the moon affects digestion. There are no dentists. That profession won't exist for centuries. If a tooth hurts badly enough, there's only one solution. Pull it. The tools. A pair of tongs that were last used to move hot coals. No anesthetic. Just prayer, groaning, and a good friend to sit on your chest and keep you from punching the abbot. You're not there yet. But the swelling in your jaw says it's coming. Your breath isn't great. No one's is. Everyone's mouth smells like a compost heap, politely pretending to be holy. You try not to breathe through your mouth when chanting hymns. It's hard. Sometimes you see a brother discreetly cover his nose when you speak. It's fine. You'll return the favor at lunch. A mainstream fact. Medieval people often believed toothaches were caused by tooth worms, tiny creatures burrowing in your teeth. This theory persisted for centuries and led to treatments like smoking them out or rubbing herbs over the gums to suffocate the worms. Scholars still argue whether the idea came from real nerves visible in cracked teeth or just imagination plus pain. You try one of the monk-approved remedies, chew a clove, hold vinegar in your mouth, or rub sage on your gums. None work. You start to wonder if maybe you do have a worm in there, and it's just singing loudly today. You don't control the weather, but the weather definitely controls you. In the Khmer Empire, seasons don't gently change. They arrive like invading armies. You either adapt or collapse in a very dramatic, extremely dehydrated heap. Right now, it's hot. Not beach day hot, not fan yourself with a palm leaf hot. The air itself feels like soup, and you're the main ingredient, hot. Your clothes cling to you like punishment, which makes sense, because they kind of are. Your dance skirt, elegant and layered, becomes a mobile sauna. The gold-threaded sashes glitter in the sun like tiny fire starters. You're sweating before you even move, but once practice starts, you're melting with flair. There are no fans, no cool rooms. The temple stones, which you once naively believed would stay cool, are now radiating stored sunlight like ovens. You walk barefoot on polished steps that could grill fish. You think about lying down in the lotus pond, but you remember the leeches and the eels, and the monks telling you that leisure invites weakness. Historians still argue whether dancers were given any seasonal modifications to their routines, or if you were simply expected to suffer with grace. Spoiler alert, you were expected to suffer. With choreography. The worst part is trying to sleep at night. There's no breeze, just still air and body heat, all trapped beneath a thatched roof held down with hopes and prayers. You lie on your straw mat, glistening, itchy, and deliriously counting mosquito bites like sheep. And no, mosquito nets are not included in your historical subscription package. Then comes the rain. Monsoon season isn't so much weather as it is a personality. Loud, sudden, dramatic. One second you're doing your morning prayers, the next you're being slapped in the face with water sideways. Everything turns to mud. Your path to the training hall becomes a slip and slide of ancient proportions. Your dance becomes a splashy interpretive piece, ode to not falling in public. But hey, the rain cools things down, right? Sure, if you consider 90% humidity and fungal infections a cool down. And then there's the cold season. Cold here is relative. It won't snow, but the mornings will freeze your joints like a badly edited yoga pose. Your muscles, trained for flexibility, lock up. You shiver in your silk costume because layers are for soldiers, not performers. Your feet go numb in the early temple rituals, but the show must go on. With numb feet. Fringe tidbit alert. It's rumored that some dancers learn to control their body heat through breathing techniques taught by monks. If that sounds impressive, it is. If it sounds effective, jury's out. Mostly it sounds like a slow-motion asthma attack performed with dignity. And if you get sick from all this extreme weather, don't worry, there's always the temple's herbalist. He'll give you a tea made from boiled bark and beetles. That should help. Or not. You start to accept that comfort is a mythical concept, like dragons, or equality. You learn to embrace sweat as a second skin, rain as a dance partner, cold as a test of your soul's flexibility. Weather is not just something that happens around you. It becomes part of your identity. Your dance mirrors the wind, your steps mimic falling rain, your hands trace the curve of clouds. But deep down, you're tired. Not just from movement, from enduring, from pretending it's all fine, from smiling through heat stroke and bowing through thunder. You long for a breeze that isn't just the byproduct of a passing elephant. You fantasize about sleeping under a roof that doesn't leak. You dream of seasons that politely transition instead of kicking down the door. But you keep going. You perform. You endure. because no one else dances through the storm like you do. Water, it surrounds you, it saves you, and sometimes it kills you. As a temple dancer in the Khmer Empire, you are intimately familiar with the stuff. It floods your ankles during the monsoon. It clings to your skin in the heat. It is revered, feared, prayed to, and yet, you rarely get enough of it. Or at least, not the clean kind. You'd think living in the shadow of the majestic Angkor Wat, surrounded by massive berets, those epic man-made reservoirs, would mean free-flowing access to fresh, drinkable water. But no. Those gleaming pools aren't exactly Evian. They're more like medieval mystery soup, filled with silt, fish waste, and mosquito larvae doing synchronized swimming. And yes, you still drink from them. Boil it first, they say. Which is adorable advice if you have unlimited firewood, time, and no performances scheduled for the next 6 hours. Most days, you sip and hope. Or you chew on cleanish herbs after and hope harder. When your stomach starts turning into a percussion instrument, you simply chalk it up to spiritual imbalance. Historians still argue how widespread waterborne disease was in Angkor. But archaeological evidence hints at high infant mortality rates and parasite infestations. So, not great. Even the royalty wasn't immune. The difference? They had private pools, coconut water, and people whose full-time job was holder of the clay water jug. Bathing, meanwhile, is not a daily affair. It's not even a weekly affair unless you're a river fish. No, bathing here is a ritual, a social event, a weather-dependent gamble. Too hot? Water's evaporated. Too cold? You'll freeze mid-splash. And too public? Well, modesty exists, even when hygiene does not. Instead of soap, you use sand or tree bark. No loofahs. Your exfoliation tool is hope and friction. And shampoo? Try lemongrass juice. Yes, it smells nice. No, it doesn't remove lice. Oh, and bathing isn't just physically risky. It's spiritually risky too. There's a real belief floating around, no pun intended, that bathing opens your pores and invites evil spirits or illness to sneak in. So the paradox is, dirty equals safe. Clean equals spiritually compromised. Take your pick. Quirky fact time. Some dancers believed in cleansing by incense, standing in a cloud of sandalwood smoke until the gods, or at least the mosquitoes, got bored. It doesn't clean much, but it does make you smell like a temple and feel slightly more magical. And yet, despite the hazards, water still dominates your rituals. You wash your hands before entering sacred spaces. You anoint your brow with droplets before dance. You carry blessed water in tiny bronze cups to offer the gods. It's sacred, it's symbolic, and it might also give you dysentery. The worst part, there's no privacy. Whether it's fetching, drinking, or washing, everything is communal. That elegant ritual bath beneath the Naga statue, you share it with 4 other dancers and a small, judgmental frog. Still, you adapt. You learn which ponds are safest. You master the art of bathing in 20 seconds flat. You recognize the early signs of dehydration and the subtle difference between spiritual dizziness and actual heat stroke. And you keep performing, even when your stomach feels like a cursed drum and your skin smells faintly of river mold. Because in the Khmer Empire, water is never just water. It's a gift, a curse, a test, a mirror in which you glimpse your fragility and your defiance. But for now, you can let it all go. No more dawn bells, no more aching joints or hollow meals, the sharp itch of rough fabric, the sting of mosquito bites, the burn of the sun on your shoulders, all fading into soft shadows now. Even the whisper of sandalwood and the echo of temple drums quiets into the distance. You are far from that world of carved stone and scorching dust. Let your body relax. In this moment, your limbs are no longer performing, no longer praying, no longer obeying 1,000 silent rules. You've stepped out of history's pages and into stillness. The temple walls that once loomed with grandeur now dissolve into soft mist. The dancers, the priests, the emperors, just ghosts now, carried off by centuries of jungle vines and time. All that remains is breath. Yours, slow, steady, unburdened. You've survived this journey, though maybe just barely. And the good news? You're back in your own bed, with your own fan, and hopefully, not a single ceremonial headdress in sight. Whatever worries you carried into tonight, they can wait. For now, you're allowed to drift, weightless and warm, into a world with no temples, no curses, and no ghost frogs judging your bath. Sleep well, time traveler.